Hari Om all. We will start the session. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Okay, so we have been going through those series of verses where one by one each of these Panchakosha have been taken up for analysis. First, to say what that constitutes of, and second, to say as to why it does not befit to be Atma. If we link to those 7 questions which were asked, Ko nama bandhaha, what is bondage? Kathamesha agataha, these were the questions which the student asked first. So, Guru is answering those questions. So, that's where we are. So, just to recollect where we are. So, Ko nama bandhaha was the first question. What is bondage? Kathamesha agataha, how did this come about? Katham pratishtasya, how does this get established and sustained? And Katham vimokshaha, how can one come out of this? Ko asau anatma, what is anatma? Paramaha ka atma, what is parama or atma? Then the 7th one was Tayoho vivekaha kathameta duchyatam. Tayor vivekaha kathameta duchyatam. So, how to differentiate between anatma and atma. So, that's where we are actually, where this process of differentiating between atma and anatma is what is being done in this particular stage. So, the 7th question is being answered here. Just to recap where we are and in what context these verses are being seen. So, Panchakosha is one of the model in which anatma can be explained. So, that we should understand as to what is being explained. Is it atma or is it anatma? So, Panchakosha is an explanation of anatma part. So, anatma can be seen as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and these 5 things constitute this entire system of what we see as a human figure. So, do recollect, they are Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, Anandamaya. So, we saw the first 4, and for the first 3, we also saw the reason why it does not befit to be that Atma, because here Shankaracharya is comparing Atma versus Anatma. So, Anatma is taken up for analysis, and each of this layer is being compared with Atma to dispel it, that it can never be that Atma. That is what is being discussed. Now, in the case of Vijnanamaya, in those 2 verses, I think 52 and 53, what we saw was as to what Vijnanamaya constitutes of. And the further verses also talk about when did this Vijnanamaya come into being, how does this function. So 54 and 55 talk about it, and verse 56 only talks about as to why this does not befit to be that pure, ever pure Atma. So this is the flow, this is the context in which we are examining these verses. We will take up verse 54, which talks about how does this come into being, and verse 55 as a combination, how does this function. I'll read verse 54. Anadhikalo ayamaham swabhavaha जीवस्समस्त व्यवहाररूढ़ा करोति कर्माण्यपि पूर्ववासनः पुण्यान्य पुण्यानि च तत्फलानि. And these are combined while explaining this because both how does this come into being and how does it function, they have been explained in one flow. So the next verse is Bhunkte vichitrasvapi yunishu vrajan ayati niryatida urdhvameshah karoti asyaiva vijnanamayasya jagrat swapnadhyavastha sukha dukkha bhogaha. Okay. So first of all, how does this come about? That is a very tricky question, and this one has to know, and one has to cross this stage, and one has to assimilate this stage even to proceed further. So in the earlier verse it was mentioned that this Vijnanamaya, though it acts as though it is independent, it has this Karta Bhava. So it is that Karta. So that's what was mentioned in the previous verse. So even though it behaves as a person who goes about transacting, who thinks this is mine, this is me, this ego, what is there, is that particular Vijnanamaya. So that's why he becomes a Karta. So it was presented that he is basically dependent on Atma for his existence itself. So that dependence was very clearly spelt about. Now the question is, when this came about, this question always comes. If ignorance is the reason, when was the first ignorance initiated? That question always comes. Similarly, if this unit is what is, this entity is what is owning this kartrutvam as I, this identification, natural question of anyone would be, when did this start? So that's where the question will come. For that, Shastra's answer is, it is Anadhi. So it's very clear, it is Anadhi. And same answer you will get for when did this first ignorance come about? Same answer. When did Maya come about? Same answer. So when we were seeing what was Maya, the way it was presented, there also it was mentioned, this Anadhi word was used there as well actually. And there is a reason why it is used that can be explained later. Okay, if it is not having a beginning, if it is Anadhi, Anadhi is beginningless. If it is not having a beginning, is it something which can be ignored? No. Something which is not having a beginning, we may think that it is not substantial and we can just ignore it. So is it so easy? No. Because we see the effect of it. We see its relevance. We see its role by the effect. So, effect wise, we see that ignorance is creating a problem, wrong identity is creating a problem. These things we see in any case. So, if that is the case, one has to deal with this. One has to identify and deal with this. Sorry. It is very clearly experienced from its effect. So we catch the effect part of it, analyze that part of it, and then compare with Atma, and then check if this befits to be that Pratyagatma. Now, what is said about how does this come into being and how does this function? I'll read it verbatim from the verse itself, what's given here, the translation what is given by Swamiji. This Vijnanamaya, whose beginning cannot be determined, has the I sense due to identification with the body, etc. So the starting point, as we have been seeing in this 4-5 verses, in the previous maybe 6-7 verses from Annamaya onwards, the starting point has been about this very identification. this person's identification with one of these panchakoshas is the point taken up, and this wrong identification is the issue. The root cause of samsara is this wrong identification of oneself, which is pratyagatma, with each of these panchakosha. That's the basic thing one has to understand. So this Vijnanamaya, whose beginning cannot be determined, has the I sense due to identification with the body, which is wrong basically, and is the jiva. He is the one sorry, he is the one who's given this term jiva. Jiva because he has this boundary of me, mine, me, others. Even for a pursuit to happen, the starting point of I is required. I mean, if we do not have this wrong identification, then a pursuit becomes meaningless. Just imagine every day if we if we identify ourselves with another body, mind, sense complex, it's going to be very difficult. Even when sorry, I don't know why I'm getting this problem. even when one identifies with one body, mind, sense complex, we have all this problem, right? We have to ensure that every day we attend the school, and one can have control over his body and his panchakoshas, and one can ensure that he will have this minimum attendance as prescribed by the institutions. Imagine if each day when we wake up, we wake up with other person's identification. That's going to be very difficult actually. Thank God those wrong identification, erratic wrong identification is not there. Luckily our wrong identification is with one given set of panchakosha and not with all panchakoshas around us. Thankfully it is not the case. So otherwise, just imagine one day you learn 10 verses of Vedanta, and the next day you don't identify with your own this body, and in the second one, if they are not even initiated, again you have to learn all those 10 again, all over again. So there is no chance. So luckily, though we do not have the information about when it started, at least we know today we have a wrong identification. By effect, we know that we have an issue on hand, and we want to come out of this issue in terms of a wrong identification. Luckily, every day we identify ourselves with this panchakosha. Of course, in dementia or whatever similar issues, there definitely this particular kosha gets affected, but still, Maya being what it is, Vijnanamaya kosha can be affected by dementia, but the next one what we will talk about is even more subtler. That doesn't get affected. It stands intact. So when we come to that, we will discuss that, but I can make a reference of that here since I already mentioned about it. So Anandamaya holds the real ignorance. Okay, and Anandamaya is so subtle, it is evident only during Sushupti, when one is not having dream at all. So it is a deep sleep state where dream is not there. So in deep sleep, even mind is completely resolved. So there is no one to keep account of what is happening from time to time. So that count is not there. From a mind, thinking and thoughts perspective. However, the witness is available. That's the reason the recollection happens. Because of the witness, the ultimate witness, which is that Atma, the recollection happens. So in that status, Kartrutvam also is not there, because Vijnanamaya is already resolved there. That's the reason. The moment we get up, everything comes along with all our debts as well. Whatever we own as debts, they all are recollected. Okay, now I have to pay bank this much. As we get up, all these things come along with us. So this is what happens. So luckily, every day when we wake up only to our debts and not to others' debts. So that way it is very useful. So with that relaxation, we can deal with Vijnanamaya kosha. And this is the jiva, the carrier of all activities. Having the impressions of the previous karmas ingrained, he performs punya karmas. Punya, everyone knows here, so I don't need to translate that. And papa karmas. See, when some of the examples as to how the liabilities or assets, like punya and papa, they accrue. Okay, take the example of our own selves. Each of us might have taken up roles, right? Some of them are roles where you don't even get compensated. For example, a position in a society's committee. So if you take up the position of a treasurer or secretary for that matter, so you are just volunteering, otherwise you are just one of the members. Okay, now due to whatever good intentions, you wanted to serve the society, because there must be many other people also who will be volunteering at different points in time, and everyone has to do this. So you get into that role. The moment you get into that role, you are bound by so many rules. Suddenly you are bound by law, an extra law, you can say, an added law. So the Societies Act. So the Societies Act, it gives the obligation specifically on the office bearers, and it spells out the office bearer in this position is responsible for 1, 2, 3. If anything wrong goes, he is answerable and he can be sued by someone, anyone for that matter, whosoever has a locus standi, has a context in terms of that complaint. So minus this upadhi is this role. Minus this upadhi, the person was not affected by that particular law. However, the moment he has volunteered to take up that role, he takes up that role with all the pros and cons of that particular role. This way, when this jiva comes about, it gets an identity and it is bound to transact in this world. Now, let's go back to the previous example where a treasurer has a person, one of the members of the society, has taken up this role. Now, having taken up this role, he cannot say that, by the way, I am not going to sign checks, I am not going to make payments. Why? Because these incur problems. So the moment I am making payments, anyone can ask me, how did you make this payment? Why did you make this payment? Was it right? Was it wrong? Did you make the right amount? All this happens. That's the reason I am not going to pay. So if he says that, is there any use of him becoming that treasurer? There is no use. So transactions are inevitable when a person takes up a role. That's why the role is defined as a role, because role has this description of all verbs which are transactions. And if a person can make a job description of one page, the summary of that one page is the name given to that role, so that a person need not call out the job description to address that particular person. The person has to simply say, oh treasurer, come on. So very simple. Otherwise, if you have to write the entire job description, no one will even file a case actually. They would write all the job description. So in summary, all those responsibilities where someone can make a mistake or whatever is all there as a part of the job description, and that's what makes a treasurer or a secretary or a president, whatever for that matter. So transactions are inevitable. Similarly, in this case of a jiva, the moment this ignorance happens and this jiva comes about, wherein from the ultimate position, with the combination of maya, this wrong identification comes about with one particular yoni. That's where the problem starts. And since transactions are inevitable, the result which accrues out of these transactions, they are also inevitable. This is where we get into this slippery mud, quicksand, you can say. So we get into this through this way, and that becomes a cycle, because the moment you have performed one karma, you either get punya or papa. So punya or papa means that you will have to face a an advantageous situation or an adverse situation based on whether it is punya or papa. So the encashing part of it happens that way. So basically you can say you have potential energy and you have kinetic energy. So you wind the clock for that to work, and the unwinding part makes it work basically. So you wind and then unwinding happens. So basically when you accrue karma, you wind it, and as you wind, automatically it means that unwinding has to happen. So with our karmas, we give this winding part of it, and unwinding part of it is taken care of by dharma. So kinetic energy is dharma, as much as potential energy is as well. But the way it works is, moment this is there, this can always happen, this will eventually happen. It's only a question of time as to when. So first karma you did, you incurred the first phala. Second karma, second phala. They are all in an unmanifest form, and there's a long queue. So whenever there is a queue, there's always one experience of which one first, which one next, because time wise and space wise there is a limitation. All karma to fructify at the same time, at the same microsecond, is very difficult, because the jiva will not then have that suffering actually. So it has to be given in very gradual dosage actually. So most of us, whenever there is a needle prick, we want to get rid of it within a microsecond. Unfortunately, I've seen my own experience where this guy pokes in one hand and says, "Sir, kuch nikla nahi." After 1 minute, he says this actually. Then you'll have to give the other hand as well. So instead of one prick, you get 2 pricks actually, and you have to bear it for 2 minutes at least. So this happens. So papa and punya, the phala of these two, they do have their own time according to whatever law it is, and they fructify in their own time. This is what this is how it happens. I recollect in this context, in terms of their own time, I recollect what Modi ji said. He was saying that if something is done to India, we will definitely hit back, and we will hit back at our own time and our own terms. So like that, dharma also works that way. It will hit back in its own terms. So that's how it happens. Now we can't say that, okay, I am now prepared for accepting the phala of all my past bad deeds. Hey Lord, I've gone to gym, I've got enough body. At least those cases where I physically assaulted someone, all those, let it be fructified at this point in time, because I am prepared for it. I am quite strong now. Let people come and slap me, hit me, do whatever. I want to finish those karmas now. Please help me, Lord. We can't ask this. The karma phala always fructifies in its own terms. That is where we have Jyotisha Shastra very handy. So the entire astrology works only because of this uncertainty of time, of this fructification of karma. Since we do not have this idea, we respect Jyotisha. So we just see, okay, how this yo-yo is going to be. It's either up or down. And within up and down, the intensity of how much up and how much down is also shown there. So this is what normally we want to understand. And when the karma phala is very difficult, in terms of papa karma phala being fructified, that is when one actually thinks of astrology, because obviously you will have the nivritti bhava where you want to get away from that situation, or at least know what is the length of time so that you can be mentally prepared for it. This also happens. So Jyotisha Shastra as a body of knowledge is going to help this jiva only this way. But eventually the karma phala has to fructify. So to some extent it can be diluted due to sakarma, some more good karmas. Prayer certainly helps, but then that will not obviate the entire thing. Karma phala will definitely accrue. it may dilute a little bit. Because when one says sorry, even the person who is a victim many a time says, fine, I let you go. So that is how dharma also works actually. And that's what we see also manifesting in victims as well. So they also say, fine, this person has a remorse, he's understood it. Now he's a person who's refined. There's no point in punishing this guy. This is the thought process of many actually who have been a victim of a particular wrong action as well. So dharma works that way. This Vijnanamaya kosha, this Vijnanamaya, wherein one person wrongly identifies himself with this particular intellect sheath. This is the one which is responsible for performing actions and eventually getting the results accrued into it. Mileage points, negative mileage points or positive mileage points. Both ways it works. So that's what is Vijnanamaya kosha all about. He performs punya karmas, he enjoys the results in various bodies, above and below. Moving in various bodies, he comes down and goes up. This is the beauty of Vedas, the way it gives this idea that, okay, this Vijnanamaya, the person who is wrongly identifying himself with this body, mind, sense complex, has desires, has this karma, like which is basically energy. That energy in that form survives the physical decay of body. So we are made up of this 5 kosha. Supposing the first 3 they die, 4th and 5th are intact. They are intact. And this guy again wants to get up and have filter coffee. This is what happens. And he gets up in another body, that's all. Bichara, he may not be even knowing that he really wants filter coffee, and because in that Janma he may not have the idea of filter coffee, so he will still be wondering, I want something, I don't know what I want. And finally, basically what he wants is to get away from this wrong identification. That is what is, moksha. So the real or the useful desire wherein a person comes out of the cycle is moksha. That I want to know what is the truth of things around me. Because it's a natural thing. Anything around you, we take it for granted, we transact, and when things hit back, that's the time of introspection. And in that introspection, you start getting these things, and that's when you understand by accident or whatever that, oh, there's something called moksha, and then we pursue that actually. This is how we pursue moksha. So, after all this karma, when this Vijnanamaya and Anandamaya part of it, the Karta ceases to exist in the sense that in this body, if the first 3 kosha, they perish. This gentleman, with all his desires, he continues as an entity, he takes another yoni. So that's why Swamiji says somewhere here, is saying, this jiva is someone who gives work to Bhagavan also. Because God has to create another yoni for him. Because there's an allocation happening. It is like the way, I think those days for Bajaj scooter, people had to apply. And it would come sometime actually. So like that, if there is a jiva which is now available for assuming another body, it is in queue. And quickly, the Lord Dharma basically, it has to make arrangement for that to be born in another yoni. And in Taittiriya Upanishad, it is said, Akashat, the way, the creation happens. First of all, from Brahman plus Maya is Akasha. Then Akasha has Sambhutaha. Then Akashat Vayuhu, Vayor Agnihi, Agner Apaha. Then Adbhya Prithivi, Prithivya Oshadayaha. All these plants and plants kingdom. Oshadebhyo Annam. From Oshadebhya we get Annam, food. Annat Purushaha. So from that only you have human beings. All these beings you get from there only. So basically in Taittiriya Upanishad this is mentioned, the engineering part of it. So this jiva basically gets into food, and when this food is eaten, that's when it goes into human body, and from there only it is potentially available as those reproductive cells, and then they get this human body, and they manifest as this particular jiva. So that's how it works. So this karta is always available because he is ajnana sahita. This very identification of a separate PAN number, separate whatever Aadhaar card number is available as an identity, is available only when that self is subject to ignorance. The combination of that alone creates this boundary. And as long as this boundary is available, he has to assume one form or the other. It is just tattva, like you can say quantum physics, the way it works, gravity, the way it works, whatever, it's physical law, that is how it works actually. And that's where the prayatna of getting rid of this ignorance, that the propensity to assume another body is dropped. So only jnana can remove this ajnana. That's why we are pursuing jnana. Okay. So even if any jnana has to happen, it is for this vijnanamaya. That's why vijnanamaya is very important, and we have to concentrate on this a lot. Moving in various bodies, he comes down and goes up. For this vijnanamaya alone are the three states of experience of waking, dreaming and sleep, and the experience of joy and sorrow. So he is the one who transacts. Obviously, he is the one who has to be enjoying those results as well. I mean, it is not like one person does all the work and some other person either gets the benefit or the negative impact of other person's actions. It does not work that way. That person definitely will have the benefit and he has to face it. This is how it works. It will be good to mention in this context one of the verses of Bhagavad Gita. In fact, it is the very second verse when Lord Krishna starts talking. So after Arjuna says that, he is stuck with this emotion, this idea that, okay, I wanted to live after, winning over others. Definitely that thought was correct. But he is saying that after coming there, having looked into the face of everyone whom he is supposed to fight, then he realizes even more consciously that, oh, actually living means living in front of some people, not just alone. It's a community living. So everyone has this notion of, being right. The notion of being right for them is to live in front of others that way. So I'm a dharmic guy, I'm a guy who's the best archer. If these things have to be done, who should recognize as the best archer? Some other jiva, right? So he wants those jiva also to be there. So he wanted to live amidst all those elderly people, and that's what he considered as living. So somehow he realized that only there, in that juncture. So he said that, hey Krishna, I wanted to establish the kingdom because I want to live. But living is in front of all these people only. Once I kill them, then what is living then? This is what he asked actually there. And Krishna had to answer. So the first line was in a particular way that, he was saying that Arjuna, you are grieving for something what you should not be grieving for. And yet you are talking as though you are a wise man. So he says that in the first line actually. And second line when he says this actually, Natvevaham jatu nasham natvam neme janadipaha nachaivana bhavishyamaha sarve vayamataha param. So what he says is that he divides the people there around into three buckets. One is Krishna himself, one is Arjuna, and others. So these three. So he says that, hey Arjuna, please understand, there was never a time when you, me, or these people who are here, they were not there. There was never a time. And there will never be a time when they will not be there. And as far as the present is concerned, right now, whether it's you, me, or these people, we are all that eternal Atma only. Basically, he says this entire Upanishadic Aikya Vakya there itself. Right in the second verse when Krishna talks, he says this entire Upanishad knowledge there itself. Natvevaham jatunasham natvam neme janadhipaha nachaiva na bhavishyamah, sarve vayam, all of us, ataha param. He didn't say that, hey Krishna, I am that permanent thing. You guys are all these mortal guys, actually, lower mortals. He didn't say this. Krishna said, sarve vayam, ataha vayam, all of us, ataha, right now, param. Even now we are the ultimate. It is just that we are segregated by this ignorance. So Krishna includes himself as a jiva to to give the sense of being a part of all these people as well, to give that sense of belongingness. One, okay, we all have this problem, yes, but understand what is ultimate. So that's what he was saying. There also he was saying very clearly, and then he says, vachamsi jirnani yatavihaya bhutva bhavita vana bhuyah anyani grihnati navani dehi. So what he says is that, subsequently, I think within the 6th or 7th verse from there, he says that when you kill a person, that Vijnanamaya Kosha and Anandamaya Kosha, that's the reason I'm linking it to that. That particular jiva, the one who's having this boundary, that in any case survives death. So body goes up. That's why I said the first 3 kosha, they go up. But the next 2, which constitute that particular person in terms of jivatva, he will be available. He will take up another yoni. In that sense also, you are not able to kill Bhishma. You are not able to kill anyone for that matter, because they are available after that also. So Krishna had the vision, so he could give that vision. Because it's a subtle thing. It is not known to our normal eyes. Not possible. But Krishna, being that all-knowing, could make that statement. That as just like the way you change your clothes, basically this jiva changes kind of its attire by taking many bodies, yonis. So this is what he said there actually. So this is the one, this Vijnanamaya and Anandamaya, basically combination you can say, is this kartartva bhava which is there, the one who is identifying in this particular upadhi, that person survives death and he takes more bodies, and because he has had these experiences in the different bodies, including maybe the human body as well. These experiences, they are stored, and his response to different kinds of stimuli in the next birth is conditioned by the Purva Vasana. The Purva Vasana, these experiences to different stimuli are stored as an information, and this conditioning affects or influences the response which is given by this jiva in the next birth, in its next body. So if we take one example, the recent example of this unfortunate incident, what we saw 3 days before, those people who were, I'm sure, frightened at that incidents, at that point in time, that flash memory would be there forever etched in their Vijnanamaya and Anandamaya, specifically Vijnanamaya. That memory will always be there as a vasana in the next birth. In case they take up any flight, that fear will always be there. And yes, as that time part is also there, it may fructify sometimes, it may not fructify sometimes, depending again on dharma. So that many a times in this birth also, we say that we don't like a particular kind of creature, and it's very different. For example, Swami used to say this actually. Normally, wife has a problem with cockroaches, and husband may be having a problem with something else, maybe snakes for that matter. Wife says, no, snake is not a big deal, but cockroach is a big deal, so you take care of it. Snakes, I can take care of it. So it's very peculiar that amongst people, they are allergic to certain things as compared to others. Others may think, अरे इसका भी allergy हो सकता है क्या? For example, arachnophobia, something like this, I think is there. Even my son has this problem. He cannot put up with the thought of a spider as well. He has a problem. And he does not definitely mind any other creature for that matter. But then spider, he has a problem. So this is very funny. And in psychology, somehow I got this knowledge from my daughter. She is pursuing psychology. And that kind of corroborated with this information. I believe the research says that in the past birth, I don't know how they are talking about past birth, but then in whichever body of knowledge they have given this, they have kind of given this validation that in the past, whichever life form we have taken, we would have been subjected to pain and maybe even death by certain other creatures. It can be animate or inanimate or whatever it is you can say. It can be lightning for that matter. So those situations or creations, creatures or whatever it is, those definitely instill and they invoke the sense of fear in us. It can be sound, it can be whichever way it can be manifested, sound, light, or a pattern. For example, I was checking this with myself. So I don't like pattern of pores. If you show me a pattern of small holes, put together as a cluster, I just don't like it. I just delete that, or I want to just come away from that. It is only because of Purva Vasana. So that study says that it's because of the experiences taken in the past in terms of those life and death situations, mostly adverse situations actually. So even science is also in a way talking about it actually. So the Purva Vasana, what is spoken about here, is that actually. So this storage manifests at different times in the next birth. So it is this Vijnanamaya Kosha which is subject to all these problems. So jumping into a fire, jumping from somewhere, a building to this, thinking that, oh, this life is so bad, does not work, because you have to eventually take another body. You do not know whether that's going to be human body, or from microorganism onwards you have to start, and then again from there you come to human body. And when we say this, we should link this to the initial verses where we spoke about Durlabham Trayame Vaitat Devanugraha Hetukam Manushyatvam Mumukshutvam Mahapurusha Samshrayaha. It's very rare to get human birth, and all the more rare is basically this human, to get human birth. These three things are very rare, Shankaracharya says. To get human birth, and to get this idea of getting liberated, moksha ichha, mumukshutvam, and Mahapurusha Samshrayaha, someone who can guide through this process of getting rid of ajnana, getting jnana. So all the three is very rare. And the human birth, the value of human birth was spoken about in the initial verses. That one has to recollect now. So when someone thinks that, oh fine, now I've got rid of my body, I'm out of my problems, samsara does not end there. This is why Shastra has to come and say, because this is an information which is not available to us. Unless someone, comes back and says that, I was born and then I am now again born this way. And if some of you are lucky, you would have seen those news or heard as a first account from people who recollect their past birth. So luckily I have read so many such articles at different times in the newspaper, where a child of 3 years recollects that this person was born somewhere else with a particular name, and luckily it was a kind of adjacent village or wherever, and they went and checked, found that yes, that character was there. So these definitely prove, luckily, that Purva Janma, this concept definitely is working. So since a person cannot get rid of ignorance by giving up this Sthula Sharira and Sukshma Sharira, but Karana Sharira, the subtle part of it, which is having this ignorance, which has this eye sense, the limited eye sense, unfortunately survives, continues. At least it has to take the form of amoeba. It will. That is how it is working. That is how Shastra is telling us. Now, this verse 56 talks about why this cannot be that particular Atma. So I'll read this. Ato nayam paratma syat vinyanamaya shabdatah vikaritvat jadatvacha परिचिन्नत्व हेतुतः दृश्यत्वात् व्यभिचारित्वात् न अनित्यो नित्य इष्यते. So I'll read from this itself verbatim. This Vijnanamaya with the name Vijnana cannot be the Paramatma because he is subject to change. He is not self-effulgent. He is limited. He is an object of perception and is inconsistent. The time bound cannot be regarded as timeless. So Atma earlier was already presented as that which cannot be destroyed. It is not subject to the Shad Vikara. So Shad Vikara is Asti, Jayate, Vartate, Viparinamate, Apakshiyate, Vinashyate. So this Shad Vikara definition is given in Tattva Bodha, which is the summary form of Vivekachudamani. So, Shadvikara as a concept you should understand. Anything that when it starts, so it has to first exist. Existence. Anything first exists and then we talk about the attributes of it actually. So, Asti. Then Jayate, it is born. So, taking a form. For example, you have space that already exists. In that something else is coming in actually. So, the existent part is already there kind of. So, Asti, Jayate, it is born. Vartate, keeps changing. Viparinamite, transforms. Apakshiyate. So, this is kind of decays and vinishyati, dies. So, this Shad Vikara is given for anything that is anatma. It is a given thing actually. So, as I mentioned in one of the earlier sessions also, in finance what we do, whenever a capital investment is done in machinery or intangible assets or whatever, first thing we will ask them. I think we act like Vedanti actually, without any emotions. So we'll ask the technical case, hey fine, you guys have brought something like worth 10 crores. What's the life of this? We ask this. And technical guys will say, oh, this can last 20 years. Fine. So we divide by 20 years. Every year we depreciate it with that value. By this way, 20th year, you will have either a scrap value or you will not have any value of that particular asset in the books. So like that, anything that comes, Asti Jayate Vartate Viparinamite Apakshiyate Vinishyate, the Shad Vikara has to happen. So that's what differentiates between Anitya Vastu and Nitya Vastu. Again, we have to keep on connecting to what we learned earlier. Of the Sadhana Chatushtaya, I hope people remember the name Sadhana. Sadhana is inevitable. One should keep practicing sadhana. Maybe in some class I have to talk about specifically the sadhana part of it itself with people to know that what kind of journey they are in terms of their own sadhana. That definitely we all need to discuss. So sadhana is very important. Let us keep remembering sadhana. Viveka was one of the main parts of sadhana. So what did Viveka say? Nitya Vastu Vekam Brahma. There is only one thing that is Brahman, that is Nitya Vastu. So you can say the ultimate cause. You can give that any name actually. So Brahman is one of the names that is used. Nitya Vastu Vekam Brahma. This Brahma is not Brahmaji who is the creator. Not that Brahma who was formed. We are talking about Nirguna Brahma. So Nitya Vastu Vekam, only one, that is Brahman. Tad Vyatiriktam, apart from that, Sarvam Anityam. Apart from that, everything else is Anitya. So, simple definition. What is Nitya Vastu? There is only one thing, that is Brahman, that is only Nitya Vastu. Everything else is Anitya. So, this we have to understand. So, in that sense only, this Anatma versus Atma comparison is being made. So, basically, Nitya Anitya Vastu comparison we are doing actually. That's what we are doing here. So, Vijnanamaya was presented properly and now being compared with Atma and dispelled now, dismissed, saying, oh, this cannot be this Atma because it is subject to this birth and death and keeps coming and going, and it is subject to change, and it is not self-effulgent, it is revealed by something else. It is not self-effulgent. It is limited. We know that. Right from that Alpatva, we started with that Alpatva. We know that Alpatva is an object of perception and is inconsistent. So these are not the characteristics of Atma, what was presented to be beyond the Shadvikara. It cannot change. It is beyond any of this guna. It is not subjected to guna at all. The Triguna, basically. So it is not affected by Maya, though Maya happens to be out of this Brahman only. Maya is presented as Brahmashraya. And in this context only, I think earlier also I said, Shiva and Shakti are shown as inseparable because of that. Shiva is existence, Shakti is action. And from this existence, only this samsara can come about. This Jagat comes about through Jagat Janani, which is Maya, and Maya is Brahmashraya. That's why Shiva and Shakti are shown together as Ardhanarishwara. So, with this combination, so finally it is one. Like the way we are discussing, Manas, Buddhi, Chitta. So, that one thing we are trying to differentiate and explain. The same way, in that totality, you have to account for existence, and you have to also account for those things which is coming out as Jagat. It has to come out from somewhere, and it has to be something before. So what it was that unmanifest form, unmanifest Jagat, it only manifests. A tree comes out of a seed. Tree was already available in the seed. It was only coming out, manifesting. It was available as an unmanifest tree within the seed. So Shiva being existence, Ishvara, Maheshwara, Parameshwara being existence, he is the Tattva, very Tattva of existence, or the way, other way is, existence is Shiva. In Sanskrit, when we are taught Sanskrit language, amazingly, they put the hierarchy in terms of verbs, for example. So, first, Bhu Dhato is taught. Bhu is basically existence. Bhavati Bhavataha Bhavanti, Bhavati Bhavataha Bhavata, that one is first said. And then Karoti Kurutaha Kurute. So the next one is Kurudataha, that is action. So our Sanskrit teacher, he revealed it so nicely actually. That, see, the order given is this actually. Why this first? First existence. Even in Shadvikara, Asti, then Jayate. Birth is next, but Asti, that existence is very much there. So Asti is Bhavati, Bhudato, and then anything that is happening is Kurudate. That is action. This is the reason Shiva and Shakti. This is what samsara is all about. Asti, the existence is there. From there, the limited existence which is seen is available through Maya, and Maya is Shakti, Parameshwari, Parameshwara, Parameshwari. So this is how it is presented. This is how one has to understand this tattva. And in Saundarya Lahari, the starting shloka itself is Shiva Shaktya Yuktau Yati Bhavati Yaktaha Prabhavitum Nache Devam Devo Nakalu Kushalaha Spanditumapi Atastvam Aradhyam Harihara Virinchadi Bhirapi Pranantum Stotum Va Khatamakrita Punyaha Prabhavati. So it starts with Shiva Shaktya Yuktau. So one has to understand that particular Nitya Visti Viveka part, where Nitya Visti Vivekam Brahma was the starting point as a postulate, and we are pursuing to understand that as to what this Nitya Vastu is all about. We are pursuing moksha. In moksha, definitely we don't want a cotton candy. We want something which lasts forever. That's what we want in moksha. Cotton candy has been always changing colors, and it has been changing size, and even before you eat, it becomes smaller as well. It's been creating problem. This Jagat is a cotton candy, So it creates problem as well apart from Ananda. So that's the reason we go take asylum in Jagat Janani to understand how this Jagat comes about. That's where Maya has to be recognized. It was presented earlier, and that's where you have to dwell on ignorance. Maya and ignorance, they are equal. So dwell on this ignorance, which is ajnana, which is samsara karana. Bondage comes because of this ignorance only. And there is an antidote to ignorance. That is what Shastra is. When Shastra operates, ignorance is removed. This Karta, the one which is being spoken about now, Vijnanamaya, loses its propensity to carry any more ignorance and its propensity to hold desires and vasanas based on which it would want to take another birth. It loses that propensity. That's where the cycle kind of is breaking actually. So that's what moksha is all about. This is what we are pursuing. So in this case, it is said the one within Vijnana Vijnanamaya cannot be this Paramatma because he is subject to change, not self-effulgent, unlimited, and the time-bound one cannot be regarded as timeless. So this way we are disregarding and dismissing this Vijnanamaya to be even compared to the status of Atma. So in the 7th question, for which the answer is coming here, 4th kosha was discussed and elaborated and now dismissed to be of that status of Atma. Tayoho vivekah katametadukyatam was the question, 7th question, for which the answer has been given. Of the Panchakoshas, we have dealt with 4 of them and dismissed them that they cannot be this Atma at all in any way. So this is what we have seen till now. Okay, I am seeing that the monologue has gone up to 7:31 today, but it was required. I respect the time of everyone. Those people who have to sign off, they can say Hari Om and they can leave. And those who would like to ask questions, I am available. I open up the session for questions. Anyone?
Bhaskarji, I have a question. Shikha here.
Yeah, please.
Okay, so from what I understand is that whatever we go through in this birth has a relation to some of our previous births.
Yes.
In terms of karma and even in terms of memory. So can we say the memory is the whatever sanskar or whatever has been etched in our Vijnanmay kosh?
Yes.
Is that it? Is that the causal body? Vijnanmay is part of causal body?
Yes. See, yes. If I just give an example of a mobile and a data card which can be kept in that mobile, there are 2-3 levels in which we can store data. One is in that mobile itself. Okay, it has its own memory, and you have a card memory which is an extended memory, and beyond that, when you have to switch mobile, there are 2 ways of changing data. One is that you can maybe put everything into the data card, and the data card itself can be slipped into another mobile. That's one way of doing it. But many a times, the data is so much, the WhatsApp chat and all, if you want to archive, it's very difficult to archive in this small data. At least today, that's how it is. So those chats, whether it is WhatsApp chat or anything else, for that matter, Facebook, they are all more on cloud basis. So it is basically you have an account, you sign up with an account. That is Jivatva. And you just put that ID and password and you get everything downloaded into your new system. It's there wherever it is, and you can also download it into your system, and it's always available. So something getting into Anandamaya is more a cloud storage. So that's how you can compare it with actually. Vijnanamaya is still that which is little gross, and while transacting, everything is collected into Vijnanamaya. For example, while transacting, some things can be stored into this, mobile or into data card, but eventually all these are also stored parallelly in a cloud setup. So even if this mobile is gone and this data card memory chip is also gone, cloud storage remains. So to that extent, dharma, this kind of a cloud storage as a system has been already provided by Ishvara. It's already there. It is his cloud storage, and since that is available, it can fructify into another body anywhere. As much as space extends, this storage extends. And since space is everywhere, this gentleman can be born anywhere. It can be an amoeba on Earth, or it can be an equivalent in Jupiter, or it can be in some other galaxy also. Because Ishvara has everything. So this can assume anywhere. So what you're saying is right. It is this Vijnanamaya Kosha while transacting, and it just gets into that Anandamaya. That's where the cloud storage happens. And in that level, very subtle level, it is available post perishing of these. I said 3 only because the 4th one we were dealing with. It's very difficult to dispel it when we are discussing it. So you can say all the 4 kind of gone, and the Kartrutvam finally is embedded in Anandamaya. So that's where it is actually. And as long as we do not recollect a bad experience, we don't have a problem. But bad experiences are available. We do not recollect. As long as you do not recollect. There's a saying in Tamil actually. Literally when we say, Nalla Samayatla Prasava Vedana Nyama Vachenda. So that is what they say, at a different time when you are actually in a happy mood, you remember the pain of pregnancy. So you recollect that in labor pain actually. So when it is brought to memory, that experience, kind of rectifies and you have that bad experience. When not, there is no problem. This is why in Sushupti, Vijnanamaya Kosha is subdued, or in fact it is resolved completely there. And since it is resolved, and that's the one which transacts, and that's the one which has to recollect and enjoy or whatever it is, that is not available. That's the reason you have an absence of any fructification, whether sukha or dukkha, both ways. So when there is no fructification happening, there is Ananda already there, because Ananda is beyond all these things, and that is one Swarupa. So when the noise is cancelled, silence is already available. It's only that the noise has to be cancelled. No one has to create silence. Similarly, Vijnanamaya Kosha, when resolved in Anandamaya level, already Ananda is there. Then what is the limitation? Everyone should say this is where the confusion happens. People get into stoning, drugging, getting into all these substances because they take this to be an ultimate status. This is where Vedanta has to be really read. They have to understand Vedanta. If keeping our conscious mind stoned is taken as the basis for ultimate happiness, they are misplaced in their understanding, because what they are talking about is more this Ananda Maya Kosha. When mind is resolved, basically through the substances or this anesthesia also, mind can be forcefully resolved. Naturally, when you sleep, that's an amazing experience. Without dream, when you sleep, that's an amazing experience. Mind is completely resolved, and you have Ananda. What is the difference between Ananda and Moksha? That's the reason Turiya is given another name, that Moksha state is given another name, that is Turiya, to indicate that that's a different state. That is also Ananda, that is Paramananda, permanent Ananda, Ananta Ananda. That's the reason that is very important to achieve. In the case of deep sleep, since mind is resolved for those 8 hours or whatever number of hours you slept, you have Ananda there, not being consciously enjoyed. You only enjoy it through recollection, not consciously while sleeping, because mind is resolved. Only when you wake up you understand the phala of deep sleep, not while sleeping at all. This is why in Sushupti, in Anandamaya Kosha, you cannot consciously understand that I am that Paramananda and my Swarupa is Ananda. You cannot consciously understand that. If you have to consciously understand, even in waking up state, that yes, I am not this limited being, I am that ultimate as much as space. Even space comes through me only, it comes from me only. So, that understanding, when it happens, you have a conscious, that's what knowledge is. Knowledge is not when you are sleeping. Knowledge is that when you have the chance to make a mistake. That's where knowledge counts. Otherwise, knowledge is of no use actually. So, while living, you should be liberated. That's what is more important. Most of the system, they promise a moksha after death. Who cares? Who cares? Even my daughter used to ask this question. How do we know what we are going to be after death? I said, yeah, that's a good question. So, if there is a system which is going to say that, hey boss, listen to me, do everything, do this halal, whatever it is, I'm using the word halal, for whatever reason. Do this, do that. And then you get, the best of the things in the world. Right? Who is going to vouch for it actually? Jivan Mukta. Right now, while living, you should be liberated. That's where the deal is. After death, who's going to care about it actually? While living, present the problems, present the basis of problems, root cause of problems, understand what is permanent, what is limited, then crack it while living. That is what is Jivan Mukta all about. So coming back to this point, yes, that memory what you're talking about is very close to that, but it's in Anandamaya that this particular storage is there, and moksha is at the next level. Anandamaya has only one limitation, that you cannot enjoy it consciously. In Turiya, it's a very clear state where as you see Jagat, you assimilate, you bring automatically this line of Sarvam Kalvidam Brahmasi, Aham Brahmasmi. You bring that idea straight away as you open your eyes. And you will not take 1 minute more to recollect what we learnt in Vedanta. Okay, fine, I am seeing this now. And by the way, in Vedanta, I was told that the map I am seeing is also Brahman only. So, you don't even need to think so much. It is just that it's an assimilated knowledge in you, that whether you open your eyes, whether you see this world through the 5 senses, you experience the world through 5 senses or not, concept is very clear. Sarvam Khalu Idam Brahmasi, Brahma Eva Asi. All that is here is Brahman only. Okay, now what is the deal? What is the next point? Aham Brahmasmi. I am that Brahman. So this Jagat comes out of me. All that is here is out of me only. So that being the status, you can compare that status with where we started as a limited being, sense of being quite limited and insignificant. From there we are revealed to be the most significant person, in which everything exists, including Shastra. That is the status we assume. Hope it answered the question. Shikaji.
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Most welcome. Any question by any other person? You must be thinking, next question, then another 15 minutes. Don't worry about it. Only if you have a question you can ask. Okay, so I don't see any questions coming up. I don't see any hand going up. We will chant the concluding mantra. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Have a nice weekend, all of you.
Hari Om.